Alright everybody, here are your notes for the English colony of Jamestown. So make sure you make your corrections on your copy. But so the first one says, Governor John Smith, and you may have heard him, be called Captain John Smith if you've seen the Disney version of Pocahontas, which was about Jamestown. So just remember, he was actually a lot older, and he had a beard, and he was known as Captain John Smith, and then later he was chosen as governor. So he had a famous saying that said, "He that will not work shall not eat," because he was having some trouble getting the colonists who were there with him to help out and actually work in the colony and help make things happen. So Chief Powerton, or Chief Powhatan as some people pronounce it, was leader. He was chief of the Powhatan Native Americans, and he was Pocahontas' father. So he was the chief leader of the Algonquin tribe on the eastern coast of the eastern woodlands when the English colonists arrived in the New World. So we already kind of learned about the eastern woodlands and their longhouses and their canoes and their fishing and how they survived. So the English funded this entire expedition from the Virginia Company. So if you've seen the movie, that's a really big part of it. And the Virginia Company started this colony of Jamestown, Virginia in 1607 so that they could make money. That was their goal, to get rich from the New World and make money. So unfortunately, the colonists who arrived with John Smith, they were too busy searching for gold to get rich instead of searching for food. And so 2/3 of the colonists actually died from hunger and starvation. And so that's why this time has been nicknamed the Starving Time. It was a very tough time in history to be alive. And so Pocahontas, she was a princess. She was a Native American princess. And she was the daughter of Chief Powhatan, or Chief Powhatan. And she decided that she would bring food and supplies to the colonists. She wanted to help them survive. And then she later married an Englishman named John Rolfe. And so this is a little bit, different than what the Disney version said because, guys, this is based on the actual history of it. And so that actually helped to bring peace between the Native Americans and the English, or the British, as some of you would call them. Okay? And so remember, the natives are the indigenous people. They were the ones who had crossed the land bridge back during the Ice Age and settled in this land. And so the English were trying to make peace with them, and Pocahontas helped do that. Also during this time, there were indentured servants, and we're going to be learning about this when you come back from Thanksgiving. So indentured servants, in England, people had been indentured servants for many years. Basically, if they owed a debt, if their family owed money, they would become a servant until that debt could be paid off. So that's where the word, indentured comes from. And so some of the indentured servants also came to the New World to pay off their debt that way. So in exchange for their labor of working, they got free passage on a ship to the colonies. And then we're going to start learning that some of the very first indentured servants were actually Africans from Africa across the ocean. And so years later, their people will actually become the very first slaves in the colonies. And we're going to be talking about how do you compare indentured servants to slaves? How are their lives alike? How are they different? And also during this time, they, in Jamestown, they formed government in Virginia, and so they called it the House of Burgesses, not to be confused with the House of Burgers, if you're thinking of McDonald's, right, or Burger King. It was called the House of Burgesses. So that's like us having our own government, right, us having House of Representatives and having senators. So they were elected in 1619. They were known as the very first representative government in North America. But remember, guys, the Native Americans, they had had government for years before this, the Great Council, right? Especially in the Eastern Woodlands. But this was the first British form of representation in North America. And so then, of course, they also worked with the Native Americans and grew cash crops. And so the famous cash crop that actually saved Jamestown, because it helped them make money and survive, was tobacco. And they actually would dry the leaves out, and they would use the leaves as money. So just imagine huge leaves of tobacco, and they pull that out and say, okay, I'm going to pay with tobacco. And so that was one of the first forms of money in the colonies. That was originally from there. So those are your notes on Jamestown. Please let us know if you have any questions, and make sure you made your own corrections on your paper.